Happy Pride. Welcome to Brighton's Pride celebration. We're here today to recognize the LGBTQ plus community, to celebrate the advances, to celebrate equality, but also to remind all of us that the hard-won rights, not only of the LGBTQ community, but all of our diverse communities in Brighton, need to be protected, need to be celebrated. So we're here today to do that. We're recognizing Thomas Warfield, who has been a leader in the dance and arts community, as well as in the LGBTQ community. We're going to hear from the town board. We're going to hear from our chief diversity officer about the significance of Pride and the significance of the bond that we share as members of one community. Happy Pride! One more time. Happy Pride! I'm so pleased to welcome you all to Brighton's Pride event. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor. And look at the day, look at the crowd, look at the pride. I just love it. This year, as we celebrate Pride in Rochester, and I was just talking with someone about the history of why in so many places Pride is celebrated in June. We celebrate it in June, but why stop there? And we continue on with the celebration here into July, and of course with the Pride Parade and Festival tomorrow, and I hope to see most, if not all of you there. This year we're celebrating Pride, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first Pride Parade in Rochester. But as most of you probably know, the history of Pride really dates back to 1969 and a police raid on the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village. 1969, I was around. I know some of you weren't, but that was a time of protest, of unrest, of great change in our country. There was a war going on, civil rights, and civil rights met Pride that night. That night, the patrons of that bar really said, no more. This isn't going to happen. The raids, the hatred directed at the gay and lesbian community in New York City, no more. And those patrons and other members of the community fought back. And out of that night, Pride was created. 1 year later, on June 28, 1970, the first Pride parades were held in New York City and San Francisco and elsewhere. And 50 years ago, the first Pride parade was held here in Rochester. Since that time, the LGBTQ community has celebrated many milestones, and we in government have moved the bar, as we have done here in many ways over the last 20 plus years. My predecessor, who's here today, Sandy Frankel, was the starting point for that movement, and we continue it today. We celebrate Pride, and we celebrate how one night in one bar in New York City has led to a movement that has engaged millions of people, LGBTQ plus community members and allies alike. But today, as those millions continue to advance the cause of justice, others are trying to turn back the clock. They're trying to turn back the clock to a different time, a darker time. And we cannot, as we celebrate today, we cannot allow the clock to be turned back in that way. We and the majority of Americans that support equality, that support justice for the LGBTQ plus community and all, stand as allies with the community. We stand together, we march together, we parade together today, tomorrow, and until we have succeeded in assuring equality, and justice for all. Our first speaker this morning, speaking on behalf of the entire Brighton Town Board, let me just introduce, as I introduce Jason DePonzio from our town board, I will also introduce the other members of our board who are here. Councilmember Chris Warner is with us. Councilmember Robin Wilt is with us. I know Councilmember Christine Corrado is trying to make it here today. She hasn't yet, and I'm hoping she will be able to. But I do want to introduce Councilmember Jason DePonzio, who will be saying a few words on behalf of the entire town board. Jason?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. On behalf of my colleagues and I on the Brighton Town Board, thank everyone for coming to this year's Pride celebration here in the town of Brighton. As Bill was mentioning, Pride arose from the commemoration of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City in June of 1969. We acknowledge and honor the millions who have courageously worked and advocated for the rights, freedoms, and equal treatment of the LGBTQ+ community and the progress that has been achieved since then. Here in the town of Brighton, we were one of the first communities locally to provide same-sex domestic partner benefits to our employees and enacted our version of the Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, known as GENDA, before it became law in New York State. However, Justice Thomas's concurring opinion in the Dobbs case, issued by the U.S. Supreme Court overruling Roe v. Wade, and the introduction of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation in other states are sobering reminders that we cannot rest on our laurels. We must remain vigilant against any encroachment upon the rights of members of the LGBTQ+ community and be committed to the protection of those rights here in our community. But today, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate the contributions of the LGBTQ+ community to the diverse fabric of our town, our city, our county, our state, and our nation. And let's honor and celebrate the advances in LGBTQ+ rights and those who tirelessly worked to achieve those rights, as well as our commitment to protecting and advancing those rights in the future. Thank you.
So a moment ago, somebody asked me about this flag, and we had hoped that a larger version of that flag was going to be right up here on our facade. As you know, we've proudly displayed the Pride flag for many years here on the town hall facade. You might have heard about supply chain issues. They shipped us our flag, but they shipped us a smaller version. But I hope you will have a chance to take a look at this smaller version. We're going to keep this smaller version of our flag, but incorporating the symbol of the town of Brighton, our harp lamp, and integrating that with the progressive Pride flag is a symbol that next year, because I know the supply chain will get it here in time, next year we will be proudly displaying that flag on our front facade and every year to follow. Again, thank you, Jason, for those important words. And we are going to celebrate today. And specifically, we're going to celebrate and we're going to honor someone whose contributions to the community and whose contributions truly to the world are not only given boundlessly, but selflessly. Thomas Warfield is a man that most of us here today know, and surely most of us would like to emulate as a role model for human empathy, goodness, and activism. I didn't know it at the time, but growing up, my mother planted the first seeds of my connection to Thomas and the Warfield family. As Thomas has heard me say many times, my mother, I grew up listening to my mother's Leontine Price records. My mother played Leontine Price on our old monaural turntable probably more than she played any other records. Many years ago, I had the pleasure of getting to know Thomas and learning more about his amazing family, including, of course, his uncle, the great William Warfield, whose voice probably more than one of us have tried to emulate. Absolutely impossible, of course, but also who married that very same extraordinary talent, Thomas's aunt, Leontine Price. Thomas, also having the honor of knowing your mother, the Reverend Vernice Warfield. I know how much the role that she played in your life, and again, the role that she played in our entire community. She was a special woman, and I know how much you miss her, but truly, we share the love and the respect that you had for your mother. Following in the footsteps of those family members, Thomas himself, of course, is a force in the dance and arts community here in Rochester. As director of dance at the NTID Department of Performing Arts, as the driving force behind the William Warfield Scholarship Fund, which funds scholarships at the Eastman School of Music for talented and deserving African American students, and as a one-man ambassador who brings dance not only to his students but to the community at large, and who brings justice to the community at large. Thomas's role in the arts community of Rochester and in the broader community cannot be overstated. Of course, Thomas is also a leader in the LGBTQ plus community, where among the many roles he has played, he produced the annual World AIDS Day concert event for over 20 years. I could go on at length, but we came to recognize Thomas today. And so let me start by reading a proclamation from our Congressman, Joe Morelli. Joe couldn't be here today, but did send this proclamation. This is a certificate of special congressional recognition presented to Thomas Warfield. It is the practice of this member of the U.S. House of Representatives to take note of and publicly acknowledge those exemplary individuals and organizations who have attained outstanding success in their respective fields of endeavor, and in doing so have brought distinction upon themselves and their communities. Attendant to such concern and in full accord with its long-standing traditions, this member of the House of Representatives is justly proud to recognize and honor Thomas Warfield of Rochester, New York, for his tireless advocacy on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community, his devotion to making the arts available to communities worldwide, and a lifetime of artistic accomplishments. Now, therefore, I, Representative Joseph D. Morelli, do hereby honor Thomas Warfield for his unwavering commitment to improving the lives and building a brighter future for the people of the 25th Congressional District. Thomas, why don't I have you come up and join me, please? And this proclamation is given under the hand and seal of the United States House of Representatives this 15th day of July, 2022, by Joseph D. Morelli, Member of Congress. Thank you, Joe. We also have a proclamation, of course, from the town of Brighton. Whereas, representing people from across all cultures, income, geographies, and religions, the LGBTQ plus movement has helped people embrace their authentic selves while pursuing legal protections and expanding civil rights for all. And I can't stress that enough. For all. And whereas the LGBTQ plus community has worked tirelessly for respect, equality, and their very right to exist, and while remarkable progress has been made since Stonewall, this group has been singled out anew as some states work to silence the LGBTQ plus community and erase the LGBTQ plus experience. And whereas this is a grave time for democracy and human rights in America, but is also a day of celebration, a weekend of celebration of Rochester's 50th annual Pride Parade, a mainstay of summer celebrations enjoyed by the LGBTQ plus community and its allies. And whereas today we honor acclaimed performer, educator, and prominent advocate for LGBTQ rights, Thomas Warfield, who has remained steadfast in the face of oppression and adversity, and who is known for extending his hands of peace across lines of conflict and promoting the arts as a connecting force between people and cultures. And whereas, mentor to artists and advocates and activists, and of course, artist activists, Thomas Warfield is the Director of Dance at RIT's NTID Department of Performing Arts, the producer of the local World AIDS Day event for over 20 years, a recent recipient of the New York State Commendation Award, and a talented performer. I could go through the whole list, but we'd run out of paper here. A talented performer who seamlessly weaves art and narrative together to promote dialogue on some of the most pressing issues of our time. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of the members of our Town Council, do hereby celebrate Rochester Pride in the town of Brighton and joyfully honor Thomas Warfield for his dynamic contributions to the arts and the LGBTQ plus community. And this proclamation is signed this 15th day of July, 2022. Thomas, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Congratulations. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Whoops.
Well, the floor is the flags. Well, thank you so much. Sometimes I guess I get a little speechless. Recognition is actually a necessary part of our growth as human beings, to recognize one another, to acknowledge the value that we each have in each other's lives. And so I'm very grateful to, in a way, accept this on behalf of all of us, because each of us are valued, and each of us are important, and each of us make a difference in not only our family and our community, but in this world. And so I thank you for that. I was trying, when you first mentioned to me about giving me this, I thought, well, I don't live in Brighton, though. I mean, I don't know. But I did have a little short story that connected me to Brighton, so I thought I would tell it. When I was in first and second grade, I went to the Harley School, and that was 1968 or 69. It was a time I was the only black student at that school at the time, And, 1969 was the time of Stonewall, the landing on the moon. There were lots of things happening at that time. Um, and I had a friend in first grade named Billy Martin. And the story actually starts before that. It starts way back in Athens, Greece. And there was a woman named Anastasia, and we called her Tessa. And she was lived in Athens, Greece. She was Greek. And in 1952 or 53, she went to amphitheater in Athens to see a concert of William Warfield and Leontine Price. And the last part of that concert, William Warfield sang Negro spirituals. Well, Tessa had never heard a Negro spiritual, actually had never even heard of this kind of music before. And it impressed her so deeply that it remained with her her whole life. Jump a couple of decades later, or a decade or so later, she married a man who was an architect and lived in Webster, New York. She moved to Webster, New York. Her son Billy went to Harley and was in my first grade, and we became lifelong friends. And my mom used to take me to school every morning and pick me up every afternoon. And one afternoon, Tessa came over to the car and said to my mom, would you mind if Tommy, which is if you've known me since back then, you probably still call me Tommy. Could Tommy come and spend the day with Billy at our house? My mom said, oh, sure, yeah, sure. And she said, I've been meaning to ask you, have you ever heard of a man named William Warfield? And my mother said, well, it's my brother-in-law. He's my brother-in-law. And she says, oh my God, and she told that story. Well, as Tessa had told me this story many times, she had the idea that she wanted to honor not only William Warfield, but how he had touched her life. And so she went to the Eastman School of Music and created the William Warfield Scholarship Fund in 1977. And since that time, the Scholarship Fund has given scholarships to many, many, many students studying voice at the Eastman School of Music. But I tell that story partly because it illustrates the power we each have in living our authentic lives, in doing the thing that you're to do. You see, the thing is, we are all born with a kind of gift that the world needs in order to expand. In order for the world to grow and to evolve, it needs us to grow and evolve. Because actually, when you think about it, we are the world, right? And so by living that spark in yourself, you give permission for everyone else to live that spark in themselves. And that's the actual change that happens. Because the thing is, it happens from the inside of us to the out. And so when we allow our inside person, our being, our very essence to shine into the world, it lights up everybody else to do that too. And so in some ways, I guess I learned to do that early. But I don't shine alone, and I don't do anything or accomplish anything alone. I'm standing on the shoulders, in a sense, as Evelyn would say, that of all the people who came before me, and even of the people who are here with me, we kind of lift each other into this sort of next evolution or revolution of our lives. And so it's with that awareness and understanding and compassion that I thank you for these wonderful gifts that I've been given so often lately. And I accept them, and I humbly accept them on behalf of you and the work and the love that you put into the world. So thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, there's more. Oh, thank you.
you will note the purple.
I see the purple, yes. Thank you all so much.
Thomas, thank you. Twice now in the last couple of weeks, I've heard Thomas come to an event and say, well, I don't really have anything prepared, and yet move everyone in the house to the very depths of their soul. And that is why it is such a privilege to be able to recognize you and to thank you and to look forward to many more such opportunities when you will move us, when you will shape us, when you will inspire us to move forward. Thank you, Thomas. One more time. That was Bridget Monroe, my assistant, who just brought those flowers up, and she was integral in planning today's event. I also want to now introduce and bring up our Chief Diversity Officer, Miriam Moore, who also worked to organize today's event, as well as the wide range of activities that the town of Brighton is pursuing, working with our IDEA board, our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board. And I will mention again, as we try to do when we're together, if there are people here who would like to engage with Miriam and the IDEA board in helping to plan community events like these that celebrate our diversity as a community, please reach out to me or directly to Miriam to let us know. Miriam.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To recognize pride means that we acknowledge and uphold the founding notion of liberty, freedom, and justice, just behavior and treatment for all. To recognize pride means that we stand committed to presenting an environment where the town's order of business is accessible, equitable, inclusive, welcoming, and fair. To recognize pride means that we, with the greatest of intentionality, stand in solidarity with those among us who continue to bravely and boldly challenge the snares of marginality and oppression, all in the name of love. And so today, we raise our flag with all of its glorious colors to acknowledge and celebrate our LGBTQ plus family and friends. Stand in your truths and stand tall with pride. Thank you.
As you know, we've been providing ASL interpretation of events and meetings, and we're pleased to be able to do that again this year. Thank you so much. Today we're faced with an opportunity. We're faced with a challenge. You've heard it from Thomas, you've heard it from Miriam. We're gathered here today, we're here to celebrate, and we're going to be walking down Park Avenue tomorrow, celebrating. But we are faced with challenges. We are faced with people who may not understand, who may not have made the connection that we heard today, that justice and equality and equity for the LGBTQ community is justice for all of us. As Jason mentioned, when you read that concurring decision, you see that the same forces aroused to take rights away from our friends and neighbors who are members of the LGBTQ community really are an assault on the whole panoply of rights that are guaranteed to us in this great nation. So celebrate, spend some time today, come back out to Park Avenue tomorrow, but never, ever forget that these rights we celebrate, these victories we celebrate, are not guaranteed. They're guaranteed by us, by our work, by our hearts, and our effort. And we carry on to do that, to make the American dream possible for all. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Well, I feel so honored and so humbled to be honored. I don't know if it's important they honor me, but it's important that we honor one another because everybody should feel valued. And so by honoring each other, we kind of publicly acknowledge the value of a person and their life and what they do. And so I'm just hoping that it's an ongoing valuing of everyone. You know, every year there's somebody that we will honor and thank and encourage and inspire, so it continues to kind of ripple the effect of the good work that needs to be done. I am honored that Bill gave me this award and this recognition, and I've known Bill a very long time. And as supervisor of Brighton, he has truly blessed many lives with this sort of compassionate and kindness that that's part of his being. And so I'm always inspired when I'm around him, and I'm very grateful that he has suggested that.